You don't keep choosing people who can't choose you by accident. You're doing it with impressive consistency, and pretending it's bad luck is the most reliable way to keep the pattern alive. Before you feel personally attacked, do the ritual. Like the video. Subscribe. Comment something like, "Wow, okay." Share it with someone who keeps saying it just didn't work out, like the universe is pranking them. There. Now we can talk honestly. Let's get something straight early. You are not drawn to unavailable people because they're mysterious. You're not attracted to them because they're deep. You're not unlucky. You're choosing them because they offer something that feels safe to your nervous system, even though it hurts. Unavailable people give you intensity without exposure, connection without commitment, desire without responsibility. And that combination feels familiar. Someone who can't choose you keeps the relationship permanently unresolved, and unresolved feels strangely comfortable to you, because resolution would demand something you're avoiding. Presence. When someone can't choose you, the story stays hypothetical. It lives in potential, in maybe, in if only, in one day. And as long as it stays there, you don't have to fully show up either. You can want, you can hope, you can analyze, you can fantasize, but you don't have to risk being fully seen. Unavailable people keep you emotionally busy without requiring emotional grounding. That's not chemistry, that's activation. And activation feels like connection when you don't trust stability. Let's talk about what unavailable actually means here. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it's someone who's emotionally closed. Sometimes it's someone who's inconsistent. Sometimes it's someone who's still attached to someone else. Sometimes it's someone who wants you, just not enough. Sometimes it's someone who gives you breadcrumbs and calls it effort. What matters isn't the form, it's the function. They can't choose you fully. They can't show up consistently. They can't offer clarity. And instead of walking away, you lean in. Why? Because their inability to choose you lets you stay in longing instead of reality. Longing feels active. Reality feels exposing. When you're longing, you're not accountable for what happens next. When you're chosen, you are. Being chosen means expectations, consistency, reciprocity, visibility. It means your needs might actually matter, and that's more threatening than you want to admit. Because if someone chooses you fully, you can't hide behind ambiguity anymore. You can't say, "They're just like this." You can't blame timing. You can't romanticize the struggle. You'd have to show up, respond, be consistent, risk disappointing someone who's actually there. Unavailable people protect you from that. They keep the focus on them, on their confusion, on their distance, on their mixed signals. And as long as you're focused on earning their attention, you don't have to ask yourself harder questions, like, what would I do if someone stayed? What would I need to give? What parts of myself would I have to reveal? So you chase what runs, you want what withholds, you invest where the return is uncertain, and you tell yourself it's love. But love isn't uncertainty, it's presence. Here's something uncomfortable. Unavailable people don't reject you. They prevent you from being tested. If someone never fully shows up, you never have to find out whether you're actually compatible, whether the connection holds under consistency, whether intimacy survives routine. The fantasy stays intact. And fantasy is safer than reality when reality once hurt you. At some point, closeness taught you a lesson. That being fully invested led to loss. That depending on someone came with consequences. That wanting more than was available ended painfully. So your system adapted. It learned to want what couldn't stay. Because wanting what can't choose you keeps you emotionally engaged without being emotionally exposed. You get the highs, the anticipation, the meaning-making without the vulnerability of being held. You call it passion, but passion without availability is just nervous system arousal. You're not in love, you're activated, and activation feels intense, urgent, alive, which makes it easy to confuse with depth. But depth is steady, activation is erratic. And you keep choosing erratic because steady feels unfamiliar. Let's talk about the identity this gives you. When you choose people who can't choose you, you get to be the devoted one, the patient one, the understanding one, the one who loves deeply. That identity feels noble. It feels meaningful. It feels earned. You're not giving up. You're fighting for the connection. But notice how that role keeps you superior and powerless at the same time. Superior because you're the one who cares more. Powerless because the outcome is never in your hands. That combination is intoxicating. You don't have to risk being ordinary in a mutual relationship. You get to be exceptional in your suffering. And yes, that sounds harsh, but it's also honest. Unavailable relationships let you feel special without being vulnerable, because mutual relationships require something unglamorous. Consistency, negotiation, boredom, repair, boundaries, and those things don't give you the same emotional rush. They require regulation, and regulation feels flat when your nervous system is used to intensity. So you keep choosing people who spike you emotionally, who make you wait, who make you question, who make you work. Because work feels familiar, and being chosen without effort feels suspicious. You don't trust it. If someone chooses you easily, you wonder what's wrong. If someone stays consistently, you get restless. If someone is available, you start scanning for flaws, because availability doesn't activate the chase. And without the chase, you don't know who you are. That's the quiet truth. You've built an identity around wanting, around pursuing, around earning. And being chosen would collapse that identity. If someone actually chose you fully, you'd have to stop proving your worth through endurance. You'd have to receive. And receiving is vulnerable when you don't believe you're allowed to need. So instead, you keep yourself in positions where you're giving, waiting, hoping, and calling it love. Here's another layer people avoid naming. Choosing people who can't choose you protects you from rejection by someone who actually sees you. If someone unavailable doesn't choose you, you can say it's because they're unavailable. If someone available didn't choose you, you'd have to face something much scarier, that it was about fit, or preference, or timing, or incompatibility. That kind of rejection has nowhere to hide, so you choose people whose inability to choose you gives you an explanation ready-made. They're not ready, they're scared, they're avoidant, they're broken, and maybe they are. But the pattern isn't about them. It's about how safely their absence lets you stay invested without being exposed. You don't have to risk your full self, just your hope. And hope is easier to lose than yourself. Let's talk about how this plays out emotionally. You feel deeply, you imagine futures, you attach meaning, you replay moments, you read between lines. Your inner world becomes rich, complex, dramatic, and from the outside it looks like love, but internally you're living in a state of constant anticipation, waiting for a message, waiting for clarity, waiting for reassurance, waiting for proof. That waiting keeps your nervous system activated. Activated feels alive. Calm feels empty. So when the relationship ends, you're devastated. Not just because you lost them, but because you lost the structure that gave your emotions purpose. You didn't just lose a person. You lost a story where you were striving, hoping, almost chosen. And that hurts more than rejection from someone who fully showed up, because at least rejection would have been definitive. Unavailability leaves you suspended, and suspension is addictive, because as long as it's unresolved, part of you can believe it might still work. That belief keeps you from fully grieving, and grief would mean letting go. Letting go would mean facing the emptiness underneath, so you stay attached. Mentally, emotionally, energetically, you replay, you analyze, you blame yourself just enough to feel in control. If it's your fault, maybe you could fix it. Unavailability gives you something to fix. Mutuality would give you something to risk, so you choose the fixable illusion. Here's the hardest part. You are not unlucky in love. You are loyal to a pattern that once protected you. At some point, wanting someone who couldn't choose you was safer than wanting someone who could, because it kept you from being fully seen, fully relied on, fully known, and being fully known once felt dangerous. So your system adapted. It learned how to survive longing, how to tolerate absence, how to mistake effort for love. That adaptation helped you once. Now it costs you intimacy, because every time you choose someone who can't choose you, You reinforce the belief that love is something you chase, not something you receive. You reinforce the belief that closeness must be earned, that consistency is rare, that clarity is suspicious, and you build a life around that belief. One where love is intense but unstable, meaningful but painful, passionate but ungrounded. And then you wonder why you're exhausted. You're tired because longing burns energy, because anticipation burns energy, because uncertainty burns energy. Mutuality doesn't burn energy, it contains it. But containment feels unfamiliar when chaos taught you how to feel alive. This isn't about blaming you, and it's not about blaming them. It's about noticing the function of the pattern. You don't keep choosing people who can't choose you because you don't know better. You do it because your nervous system recognizes the terrain. It knows how to operate there. It knows how to survive there, but survival is not the same as satisfaction. And the cost is that you never fully arrive in a relationship. You're always leaning forward, reaching, waiting. You don't get to rest into being chosen, because rest feels unsafe when you've learned to stay alert. So you stay in relationships that keep you alert and call it chemistry. This isn't advice. It's not a call to action. It's not a promise that things will change. It's just the truth behind the pattern you keep calling fate. You're not choosing unavailable people because you want to suffer. You're choosing them because they let you stay connected without being exposed. And once you see that, it becomes harder to pretend you're just unlucky. Not empowering, not comforting, just accurate.